Everyone, welcome to episode 27. Today we're interviewing Simon Trümpler, who is a VFX artist at Wild Sheep Studio in Montpellier, France. Simon has worked on projects like RIME, Wild, and The Invisible Hours, and he has a rich background in 3D art modeling assets and creating textures in games like Rebirth and Sacred 2. I'm excited to get into this interview, so let's talk to Simon. Hey, Simon. How you doing today, man?
Hey, good. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to speak to you.
It's a new year, 2021. We're putting the last year behind us. With the beginning of every new year, I know some people have goals or resolutions that they set for. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's nice. We all know that most people give them up after 2 weeks in the new year. So I don't have strict goals, because maybe you know that every plan doesn't work as soon as it hits the enemy or something. So for me, I plan my life for the next 2 weeks or something, and everything beyond is I can't plan that. And to be honest, that I'm here in VFX and talking with you and stuff like that, I never could have planned for that in the long term. So it developed all really organic without me sitting in 2016. Hey, I want to be in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years VFX artist. I don't have a New Year's resolution, but if people have and they just do it, then it's good. I'm happy for them.
Yeah, man.
Do you have one or two?
You know, I thought about this, and I definitely agree that like having long-term visions of where you see your life being in 5 years is good to have. But I find if you kind of shrink those goals to be like, what do I want to accomplish today or this week? Mm-hmm. And in my case, it's just this month. I'm just looking at January. What is it that I want to get done with my life? And one of them was, hey, let's get the podcast going and off the ground. So, you know, that's where I am is with January. Let's stick with January. We'll think about February when it comes.
That's a good saying. I agree.
Simon, I want to get this conversation started by asking you, how the hell did you get into visual effects?
I don't know if you noticed, but sometimes you are just dragged to something and you can't even say why. And for some reason, I was looking at VFX when I was just a player, just a little guy playing games. And I remember one specific effect in Warcraft 3 when you put some spell on a tower and then the tower can't shoot you. And it looks really volumetric. And I stared at this effect and I thought, this is really beautiful. It was not that I said to myself, oh, I want to be a VFX artist, but I noticed that my eye is dragged to these things for some reason. And then I got an environment artist. So I had the luxury of doing an apprenticeship at the telecommunication company. And I noticed that this is not for me, but I had the luck to discover something there. And it was called Cinema 4D. It's a 3D program. And all those 3 years education, if it was worth for one thing, then to discover this program. Because in this moment, I realized, oh, you can do 3D. And up to that, I would paint frame by frame GIF animations in MS Paint. And I would have no idea how these cool web designers would do these little 3D pills which rotate and where new is written on them or something like that. So this was the time where I got into 3D. Then I had the privilege to visit the Games Academy and learn how to do games or game art, basically. And then I worked in that field as environment artist. And then I slowly converted myself to VFX. I remember that for Sacred 2, my first project, we had a guy who did all the effects and he left the company at some point. And nobody came to me and said, hey, do you want to do VFX? But for some reason, I knew that there was this particle editor, and at some point I just started playing around with that and I had fun with that. So I did these little effects for this project and everyone else was happy because we had no other VFX guy. And in the next company where I applied to, I was mentioning in interview, yeah, I'm also did some VFX. And then the boss was, oh, that's super. I mean, they hired me as 3D modeler to doing spaceships and space stations and stuff. But he was really happy that I also worked on VFX because they didn't have a VFX artist there. So for that game, I did more VFX, not full time, but I did many of them on the side besides the 3D modeling, which was the majority.
I love how you were so open-minded to trying new things, and your beginning origin story there, you didn't even know VFX existed. You knew that it was something cool in a game. As you were going through this communication stuff, you were seeing this new software like Cinema 4D. You were like, holy crap, I can do that? You jumped at the opportunity and you took ownership. That's amazing, man.
I don't know what it is, but it was with computers in general the same thing. That there was this computer, and for some reason I was interested in putting my fingers on the keyboard, you know? Maybe other people have this with music, maybe, or poesy or something, you know? They just need to write, and for some reason I was dragged to computer stuff. And then my girlfriend moved to another city, 600 kilometers away from me. And after 5 years in the company, I was ready to change. And the change was, first, I leave the company. Second, I moved to my girlfriend. And then I wanted to try freelancing because I thought if I'm not trying it now, I maybe will try it never, right? And then I just tried it. So going freelance.
Okay, so you were at this company. Where was that at?
So this company was called EgoSoft, or is called EgoSoft. And it's in far, far west in Germany. And my girlfriend moved to the far, far east to the Germany. So it was the other side of the country.
And you made that move?
Yeah. And
wow, what was that like leaving your hometown area where you're so familiar with that, just to go to some unknown place you've never been?
Oh, no, it's actually different. So I was born in the east. Then I did my apprenticeship, and the Games Academy is in Berlin, also in the east. And I moved away to the other side of the country for my job. And this was the Sacred 2 job. This is an action role-playing game. And then the space simulation, where the spaceships. So when I moved to my girlfriend, it was more that I moved back to the area where I came from.
Gotcha.
And and I was already in Berlin studying. So it was more like, hey, I'm here again 10 years later and or 8 years later. And you might think, oh, that's a bold move to go freelance. But actually, I had just had the privilege that I could move into the flat of my girlfriend, and she was paying the rent, which means that I had no big financial struggles to pay, right? This, let's say, relationship or this collaboration made it possible that I could be so free-minded, and I was able to say, hey, okay, I will just try that. I couldn't do that on my own. If I would have been on my own, I would have searched a job, and then I could not just try going freelance. And then I had the opportunity for 6 months to build up my portfolio, to put all the stuff together. And then I was really lucky to get an email from Tequila Works in Spain. And they were looking for a VFX artist. And then I did an art test for them. And I said, hey, that fits very well because I just made myself freelance. So if you want, then we can make this happen. And I make an art test, and they liked it, and that's good. But there's one thing which is important here. It was not just that they were typing into Google, Simon, Berlin, VFX, freelance or something. During my time at EgoSoft, at this company where I built spaceships, I started a blog. And this blog dissects game art tricks, often VFX, but sometimes also other effects. This changed everything for me because I was really lucky to get some viewers on there. And whatever happened next, like job opportunities or even that we talk now, had its source in this blog because people saw it. And then in the case of Tequila Works, there was a guy working there or a girl, I don't know. Still, I don't know today who it was, but they said, oh, there's this guy. He has a blog and he seems to be interested in all the stuff. And we are looking for a VFX artist. So he suggested me or she. And this was the start of my professional full-time VFX career. This was the first time I was working full-time VFX. Yeah.
I see that with so many content creators in the VFX space. Oftentimes they'll carve out certain areas of expertise, and whether it be on a website, through educational channel like Udemy, like we have with Gabrielle and Andreas, and then they get noticed, and then people flood them with questions and job offers because they see that they're putting in the effort to put themselves in the public spotlight. And It does make a difference. And I cannot tell you, Simon, how many times I've had people come up and be like, "Oh, you're the podcast guy, Travis." So apparently that's who I'm known as, the VFX podcast guy. I think Ash Lyons said that the other day. But I think that's so awesome. I'm curious, like when you were in that freelance mode, I know you said that you were doing really well financially thanks to your wonderful girlfriend who hopefully you are still together. I'm curious, like, how was that experience being a freelancer in VFX?
To be honest, for me, it was kind of easy. I was so lucky. First, the jobs you get in games industry are long-term, usually. The projects take 1, 2, 3 years. I joined the RIME game and they were already developing it for 4 years, I guess. And then I joined for the next 2 or something. So you are not in this situation that you get little jobs like for 3 days or 1 week, and then you have to do acquisition again and again and again. So I didn't have to waste a lot of time to find new clients, which is a big advantage and a big job security. From that standpoint, it was easy for me. I had 1 client and that's it. And I had a gaming laptop. And this gaming laptop, I mean, gaming laptops are good, right? But they couldn't deal with the project. It's huge. It was just huge in file size. And I was telling them, yeah, I have this gaming laptop. And they were like, we think we will send you a PC. And I'm like, what? And yeah, they sent me a PC from Spain to Germany so that I could work. I mean, it was not a present. I sent it back when our contract ended at the time, but I found it so nice of them that they would give me hardware because, you know, to be honest, usually from a freelancer, you would expect that he or she has hardware, software, and stuff like that, and just delivers you. And I felt really welcome. So it was very, very lucky. Yeah.
And what year was this?
2016, I think.
So you're like 4 years in the future from where we were in 2020 when the pandemic hit. Like you already were living the remote working lifestyle.
Exactly.
And really like thriving in it.
And to be honest, I really like to be in the team. But in that point of my life, it was the best combination of things. I could work in this field. I could work in these areas on these games, interesting projects. But I was also at my girlfriend's place. So it was a good combination. Yeah. And I was super lucky, to be honest. Wow. I'm very thankful that they welcomed me into the freelance world and into the VFX world so nicely. And with that said, for me, the only thing basically what changed being freelancer was that at the end of the month, I would write an invoice. That's it. And I think other freelancers have horrible experiences with, oh no, the client breaks away and they have to find new stuff, or I don't know, or people don't pay them. And I never had such experiences. So it was a very warm welcome. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, you've been working on a lot of games, and we talked about, you know, Rebirth, Sacred 2, Invisible Hours, RIME, as you just said, and Wild. Out of all the projects that you've done, ones that I've said or not, what was your favorite to work on and why?
Yeah, I thought about that question because to me, all of them were struggle and difficult. And during the development, I'm so in self-doubt that I wouldn't say I enjoy working it. I mean, I always enjoy working on games, of course. I barely have a day where I look at the clock and think like, oh man, I hope it's over soon, the day, right? Almost never have that. All the Fridays, I think, oh shit, there's so much cool stuff to do, but the week is always at its end, while other people maybe are super happy that, oh, finally it's Friday. So I'm really enjoying doing games. But still, there's a lot of struggle, a lot of self-doubt for me, and a lot of learning. And for all these projects, I usually never was in the comfort zone. So enjoying is hard. But I think for me, it was RIME because it was the first experience in the freelancing field, the first full-time VFX. It was a cute game. It was beautiful and it was stylized. So
can I ask,
really
what exactly is RIME? Like, what's the game about?
I would say it's a little action adventure where you play a little boy on an island. And the story is surprisingly sad and deep. And what I really like is there is no fight. Yeah, you discover this island, which looks really beautiful. And you have little cute puzzles with little pigs, and you have to feed them melons, so they run behind you, and then you do stuff. So it's really, really cute. And it was in Spain. This is also something. I was able to work for a company in Spain, and every 3 months they would invite me to come and work in their office for 2 weeks or something, so to just keep the bond together with the team. So I was able to visit Spain and visit Madrid, which is super cool.
That's the dream.
Yeah, it's super, super nice. So it was a fantastic entry point into my career.
Are you still in contact with any of the guys at Spain or any of the companies that you worked in the past, even the freelance gigs?
Oh, yes. The first company which did Sacred, it doesn't exist anymore. But for several years, we would come all together each year and would have a barbecue together. So even the company didn't exist, the team still held together, which is really nice. And for Egosoft, I mean, we are not chatting every day, right? But the boss invited me to the Christmas party over Skype, of course, right? And when they had their 30 years anniversary, because this company is really old, it's really, really cool. I was also invited and I was telling them how I got there and super, super nice. So yeah, we are in contact. I never quit a company in anger or something, So, and the Tequila guys sometimes are knocking on the door and say, hey, if you are available, maybe we can make it happen, because VFX artists are always needed, right? Not too many people want to do this job, so we are a little bit requested. Yeah.
Now, I know you mentioned that RIME was one of your favorite games to work on. I was wondering if you could explain to us a little bit about your work on that game. And namely, I'm curious, can you talk about the presentation that you did, Tech Art Talks, that you had a while back?
Yeah, so I have some notes here. So my work on the game. Okay, so I joined there, and one part also why I enjoyed it very much, there were already VFX done by other people. They already left the company when I joined, but I could study their work. And this helped a lot because these people, they were genius. And if you saw my RIME talk, you will, I think, remember this fire effect. And sadly, it's not done by me, but I was able to study it. And I was so amazed by this trick that I had to talk about it and present it on my blog and in the talk. And so I was able to learn from them. And this was crucial. I think I would never be able to do such cool effects by my own. So I had these mentors, basically, even though they were not in the company anymore, but I could study their footsteps, basically. I could follow their footsteps. And this was amazing. Yeah, and my work was building small, tiny effects like interactive. So if you go near to them, they fly to you, surround you. And if you go away, they go to the original spot. So it was a little bit logic in them, right? But still small effects or little footsteps, a little smoke or something. But also there's, for example, a huge storm. Sorry, spoiler, if you want to play RIME, I have to spoil it now.
Those environmental effects, love it.
Yeah, but there was a huge storm, and then there was a lightning coming, and it's hitting this flying creature, and then this flying creature burns, and it goes away, and smokes and everything. But it survives, at least this lightning strike.
Okay. No small animals were killed in this game.
Oh, yeah, now that you mention it, I was advertising there's no fight in it, but there is one not so nice creature. Yes, you're right. But so there was huge and small effects, but all are stylized to fit to the style of the game. And this talk you asked me about?
Yeah, the presentation you did. It was like a big PowerPoint deck with all these awesome GIFs of like waterfalls and smoke and so forth.
If you like that and everyone who is listening like this talk, then we can all thank Alan Puget. I hope I said it right. He works at Alchemy Games, and he was writing me an email and said, hey, I know these people. They are doing a little conference in France. It's called Add-On. And I think he knows these people. He didn't organize it. And then he said, I saw your blog. I really like it. And here's the blog again, right, where everything comes from. And also I saw that you worked on RIME. So if you can, if it's not under NDA, I would love to hear about that. So I went to my boss at Madrid, Tequila, and asked, hey, is it okay if I present some stuff? And he's like, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's super cool. And this was really nice. And then I prepared for this conference. Yeah. And then I put together the best effects I saw in RIME. And this was this fire and what was it? Some smoke and some foam and the waterfall. That's at least something I did. All the other effects were from other people.
So aside of the tech side, I would just be curious, like your experience going in, not as an attendee, but as a presenter or going into a public speaking role. I'm just curious, how did it feel and what was that experience like? And when you did the actual presentation, like, What do you think made it so great? And where do you think you could have improved?
It takes a lot of preparation. Some people say it's like 40 to 80 hours per hour of your talk. And I totally can say that's true. So it's a huge effort to do that. So it was, of course, exhausting, but also amazing. And it was, to be honest, it was just a great honor that you get an email and someone invites you to such a presentation. It's super cool. I really enjoyed it. So I did the best I could. In general, I like to maybe not directly teach, but I like to avoid wasting time by documenting stuff well, which fits very well to this conference stuff, because when you do put together such a talk, you have, of course, to put nice images in and explain everything very well. What I think went well, I put a lot of detail in that. I did not just say, hey, look, we have this fire effect and it's roughly like this and this, made like this and this, and then I stop. No, I showed every texture. I showed every blend mode. Yeah, this texture is added to this one and then multiplied with that one. And I think if you just watch the talk, you can rebuild this effect. And at least I like it like that, because you are not just seeing something and thinking like, whoa, that's awesome, but I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
After this, I think you can try to rebuild it. And
I see that a lot with FX artists, especially when they're posting on the forums. They'll show this awesome, cool effect, and people are like, how do you do it? And a lot of people, they're very shy or they're hesitant to share the different textures and material setups because they want to keep it to themselves. Because, I don't know, maybe they're afraid that if they share their knowledge, they could be out of a job as a result. So I'm just curious, what is your thoughts on how we share information as FX artists with each other?
Yeah, I don't take this seriously, but the film guys are the worst. No, just kidding. But I'm learning Houdini lately, simulating pyro and all that stuff. And I'm really often Googling stuff like, oh, how to do pyro, blah, blah. And I'm so often stumbling across videos where an amazing explosion is shown. And this video is 8 seconds. And it's named Test Explosion. There is no link, no description, nothing in there where I could learn how to do this explosion. It was just a test by some people. And I noticed that from film people, I guess, who did some simulations. So, and then I'm always angry, like, give me at least a link where I can learn how to do this. So nowadays, what I do before I click on a video, I go with my mouse, hover over it, and look how long it is. And if it's just 8 seconds, I don't even click it when I want to learn something. I can understand that when you share everything, that you may be embarrassed, like, oh yeah, but my material is not perfectly set up or something. But I mean, what do you have to lose? If someone takes the time and downloads your project or looks at your material setup and then tells you, hey, this is a stupid mistake, here's the better solution, then you learn something. So in any case, you get something out of it. And to be honest, for me, it's something different also. When you post something without enough information, people will come to you and ask how it's done. This means afterwards, you spend a lot of time and you waste a lot of time with explaining it again and again. And maybe after 2 years, you don't even know what you did there. And you have to explain it when an email comes. So preparing all this information very well one time prevents this, and people can just get information and you get less distracted by email.
So let's talk about that, because that is one of your defining traits as an artist, but also as a human being, Simon, is you are extremely good at keeping a thread of activities that you do throughout your VFX career. And I saw it first when you were working as a 3D artist, and you would create wikis of all the different types of assets that you were using and start organizing them. And you've been following a very similar process of documenting what kind of activities that you do throughout your different work projects. Can you talk to me about how you manage to stay organized, whether it be on a team with other people or just by yourself, and how people can learn from what being organized can do for them?
I mean, yeah, I like to avoid wasting time, which means if I solve the problem once, I have this urge to write it down somewhere so that when I stumble across this problem again 2 months later, that I can easily solve it again. And I don't know how it's for you, but I lose this knowledge really quickly, especially when it comes to Houdini, for example, which is kind of a complex program. I forget the stuff quick. So sometimes I Googling a problem and then I find my own video where I explained how to solve it. And then I watched my own video and yeah. So, and because of this experience that my head is losing information quickly, I started to document stuff as well in my private projects, but also for professional stuff. And yeah, this helps a lot to help other people and to help yourself. That's something I get really angry when I know, oh, I solved this already and I forgot how the solution was. And I was so stupid to not write it down. The big advantage is that it may help other people and other people may be thankful for that, which is a great motivation to continue documenting stuff. And yeah, you spoke about wikis. This is more in a professional thing that I like to, if there's a wiki for the company or some other documentation software, I like to use it actually and put my stuff there. From an organization point of view, I think in a professional context, the producers are those who organize my work with tasks and everything. So there I don't have to spend too much effort. But for my private stuff, I have notes. I have the luxury right now to have the Monday off. So I have a 4-day week.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, me
but
too.
You work more hours, right?
Yeah, it's for doing your own projects. It's not that I just do nothing. I mean, it would also be okay, right? But it's the goal is on Monday to focus on your stuff, learn pyro simulation or whatever. At the start of the Monday, sometimes I make a little to-do list at the morning. What do I want to do today? It really helps to focus if you are scrolling through Twitter and then, hey, what did I just do the last 2 hours? Or what do I want to do? Then you can just look on your little sheet of paper and yeah. And for the projects, what I like to is showing progress all the time. Like just having a thread, like, hey, my super duper mega explosion, and then putting GIFs and images there, documenting your workflow, which also helps other people.
You make such a great point on the images, right? And it makes me think of your blogs that you are talking about, referencing these game art tricks that you created, having that as a public source for us to go into. I know I personally go over there and I check them out often, and having the written plus the visuals makes such a difference because every person learns differently, and you're providing a very extensive way for us to be able to consume that information.
Yeah, it's funny. As you hear, I'm not native English, but I like to see the advantage in disadvantages. And in that case, I have to write a script anyway. In that case, it's my article. I have to write down every step because I'm not so fluent in English that I could do it like spontaneous. So I have this article. And at some point, I started doing videos as well. The videos usually have the same content like the article. And so right now, I provide you even 2 ways of consuming the content. You can watch the video, you can read the article, however you want. And maybe someone else would say, oh, no, I just do the video because I'm good enough in English and it just recorded. But for me, it's like, no, I need my script anyway. So so in that case, it's an advantage for the consumer even.
Marketing 101 to people that are interested in just getting their brand and their work out there. Post it across different channels and you'll get so much more exposure. Because Simon's got his own website that he posts a lot of stuff, but he also has a YouTube channel and a Twitter channel, and that single piece of content he creates, he's reusing it and repurposing it in multiple areas to be used. So great stuff there. Simon, I know you just said that English isn't your main language. You actually speak 4 languages. Talk to me about that. What prompted you to learn all of these languages, and how has it helped you in your life?
Could we stop here? Because up to now, it sounds really smart. I sound really smart. Everything which I will say right now will drop that impression. No, but because my first language, or one of these 4, is German. And this I didn't learn. I'm just German, so I didn't have to put any effort into that. So it's only 3 left. And English is school stuff, so it's also not that impressive. And then I speak a little bit of Spanish and French. And French, I mean, I live now in France. We moved to France. So, of course, I learned the language. So that's also not too impressive to learn a language when you are in the country. So the only impressive language left is Spanish, because I didn't have to learn that. And this I just learned because I felt like I need to do something else. I was just doing graphic and art and nothing more. And I don't know how it's for you. I'm really bad in grammar stuff, and languages in general. And sometimes I was ashamed and afraid when you play a party game and they say something like, "Hey, name an adjective or something or an adverb," right? And there's, "Oh fuck, what's an adverb again?" So sometimes in these situations, I wish I would have be better in school. And
Well,
and
you
I just
Madrid as well, so you worked with Spanish-speaking people.
yes. So this was nice because I started learning Spanish before. Several years before, actually. And this was just for, I want to know a bit more about languages, get a bit better in grammar, and not being so stupid when it comes to languages, right? And I took Spanish because many people speak Spanish. So it's just, I mean, there are many people in the world, so the chance that I could use it at some point is high. So I did this. And then some years later, I was lucky to be in Madrid. And yes, then I could try to use my Spanish there. And with some people in the company, I spoke a little bit Spanish, also in a professional way. And it was, challenging, but interesting. It was really cool, yes.
I always think it's interesting in Europe because y'all are so close to each other and there's so many countries, each with their own language. It definitely has that question of how do we make it where you're able to communicate with the different companies that you're working with? Because there is a rich video game ecosystem over there, right? There's a lot of game companies. Here in the US, like there are a lot of game companies, but we all speak English, right? With the exception of, I guess you can say, Canada, there's France, and then Mexico. Really, I don't know of any game companies in Mexico, and that's Spanish. So, language has always been a question. However, we are moving toward a more global workforce. So being able to pick up different languages is a big question that other companies and people are asking themselves. So I'm always curious, how does one go about learning a new language if they've never tried before?
Yeah, before I come to that, I just want to notice that we usually speak English when we have international teams. Even I spoke with many people English in Spain. I speak English here in French in a professional term because my French is not good enough to express everything.
Right.
And in Germany, it was the same. As soon as we got international, we would just speak English. But yes, it's really cool to have so many cultures, countries, and languages around such a near place. And about advice, I would say learn in a group. You can, of course, download an app, but language is something to do between people. It's communication.
Makes
so
sense.
It makes just sense to learn it with people. And also, to be honest, it's like sport. It's like New Year's resolution. You need a lot of motivation and self motivation and self discipline to continue it without external validation, external pressure. And to be honest, I'm too lazy for that. So I need a group where I'm forced to go, where I'm forced to do the homework, and where I go every week. And only then I continue that stuff. And so I did, yeah. So I would say learn in a group. And I think learning languages is not like a game where a game is designed to always challenge you a bit, but always give you fun back, And languages are not designed like that. Languages they slap you in the face with all these weird stuff and grammar, and it's just hard. And to be honest, I was often depressed after my course. I go out there and I think I sometimes I felt I get worse over time and not better. And this goes maybe you can apply this to many fields, but I think you should be happy about your progress.
Yeah.
You should sometimes stand back and say, hey, yes, I don't feel good, and this subjunctive we just learned, I have no idea how to use it, but I can say, hey, I'm Simon and I'm happy to be here in Spanish or French or whatever, and you could not do that, let's say 1 year ago or half a year or something. So I think it's acknowledge that you learned something. And that's really important to not being depressed all the time.
That's awesome, man. And I was thinking the same thing for VFX too. I'm like, you're learning it, you're failing, you come back and look 6 months before, you're like, holy shit, I'm actually am better than I was, even though I feel really self-doubt right now.
Yeah.
I know one word in German, Guten Tag. So I understand that you actually own a podcast in your native tongue, the Game Dev Podcast. Can you talk to me briefly about that?
Yeah, it's a game dev podcast in German, which is because we wanted a project just in our mother tongue to not think all the time to how to translate stuff and just do it. Also, there's not too much competition. There was not too many other game dev podcasts. While when you search for English stuff, there are amazing podcasts out there about game development. So, not necessary to do another one. And I this is something which I can really recommend when it comes to studies. There's always the question, should you do game art study or should you do it by your own? But there's one thing you get out of it. It's other people, it's good contacts, it's friends, which you keep for many years. So 10 years later, after I was at Games Academy, we started this podcast. And it's with two people from these studies because, we held contact, we are nice to each other, so we started it. And the goal was to make no interview podcast. And now it's an interview podcast. So the goal was at the beginning that just we three people would just come together and just chat about game development. And for some reason, we invited more people. And then it develops more and more that in each episode, there's a new guest, like you do it. And we talk about interesting topics. And now it's more an interview podcast. But I think it's good. It's really nice. And we have 40 episodes right now, and we invite professionals, sometimes amazing people who were like 15 years at Ubisoft or something like in the head management. But we also invite indie developers, and sometimes students are there. So we really try to cover different perspectives. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that you're so diverse in the different people you bring on the show, but also the way that you conduct your different episodes, because it isn't always just one-on-one. And something I'm hoping to get in this podcast is more panel-based, where we can have more discussions with more people on board. I'm just curious, from some of those episodes that you have, are there any that you recommend, any particular subjects that came on and you're like, this was amazing? I know everybody was amazing, but for any of us German speakers out there?
I mean, there are 2 episodes in English, I think, but they are maybe not too interesting. It might sound silly, but I really like the Outsourcing 2 episode. And we spoke about outsourcing, and it sounds so boring, but it was so interesting what this guy told. We did an episode about women in the game dev industry, which was really interesting. Also, we had amazing guests. One woman from DICE, one from Splash Damage, and super experienced people. So this was also really interesting. Yeah, so we cover a lot of topics.
Rock on, guys.
Yeah.
And,
no, sorry. Of course, the best episode was, of course, number 29. It's about real-time VFX.
Oh.
Yes, of course, this is the best episode.
And you were the one driving that because you're the expert, right?
Oh no, I invited other VFX artists, and then I felt bad because I'm not the best one. but I mean, it's my excuse. I'm the host. I don't have to be the best in this team. Yeah.
And we'll share some of those links for our listeners today if they want to listen in on them. I want to circle back and talk about what's going on in visual effects today. What do you think are some of the big trends that are happening in the industry for 2021?
Real time, all real time simulation. I hope that in 2021 we can get rid of these. Oh yeah, I wait 8 hours to get my simulation and then just see that it looks not good, and then I spend another 8 hours to render it out. I hope we really get rid of this. And we saw, of course, Embergen. I know all the people mention Embergen in your show. But just yesterday I saw Fluid Ninja. Do you know Fluid Ninja?
I'm familiar with it, but tell us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I just discovered it yesterday. And I think before it was made for creating flipbooks in Unreal and really in real time, but now they have a real simulation. So that you have the fluid simulation or the smoke simulation in engine, and you can just move through the smoke and then it reacts to you and not as a baked flipbook. And that's amazing. And I think we see more of that soon. and then hopefully we will not waste time waiting for huge simulations. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges that visual effects is facing right now?
I think, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. So the only answer I could come up with is 4K and VR, because these new technologies need higher resolutions, which means more pixel, which means more overdraw. And VFX usually is basically just overdraw. We are half transparent textures all over the place, fill the whole screen, and we have to deal with that. No, not we, the graphic card has to deal with that. And yeah, and that's a challenge, right? And VR, of course, we want to have, I don't know, 60 or 120 frames per second. And this is also a challenge, especially when you have special projects like the Invisible Hours where I worked with, where you could stop the time and then reverse the time and then forward the time again, which means we couldn't use particle effects because we could not just revert and forward them in time. So we had to build everything in a different system. So this were challenging. But I don't know. Do you have a better answer for that? Because I was really struggling to find a good answer for that question. The biggest challenges for VFX.
Well, let me start by saying I feel like there are technologies that are coming out to help combat some of the limitations that VFX has faced in the past. I know with Unreal Engine 5 coming, they have these new systems that they're creating. I'll say for challenge-wise, at least from my perspective, I feel like everybody is looking to automate with procedural effects. And as a result, the new developers that are coming out are not classically trained in how to create art from its foundational steps. They're just letting the computers do the work as a result, which is great for saving time, but from the organic feel of effects, there's definitely a loss of quality. And yeah, just 2D animation is disappearing, and I hope that it doesn't go away completely because there's still a place for it out in the market.
Yeah, I have the feeling, especially when I look at Niagara, that it gets a bit more complicated. I think Cascade was a bit more intuitive, and now the tools get more, like you say, procedural, but with that also a bit more complicated with all these nodes and little things everywhere. So maybe that's a challenge for getting into VFX. But yeah.
Talk to me maybe about what we as artists right now today can do to contribute toward the profession and toward not just games, but toward the world. If I had to describe it, like, what is our noble purpose for existing in this world? Big question.
I thought about it lately. And I think this little pandemic, which we still have, shows it a bit better. Before that, I was struggling with the question, should we do what we do because we do something like games and entertainment products, which are not really adding value to the world in, like, there is no table we craft, we don't help other people with food or something or survive, I don't know. And we earn money with that, and the big companies, like the big computer games, earn a lot of money. And I was thinking, isn't that maybe a bit unfair? Shouldn't this money, I don't know, go to better purposes? But now I understood more that entertainment is also a value, especially now when we're all sitting at home and don't seeing each other, and to be able to play a game to just distract you a little bit from maybe the dark minds you have, you know, or also play a game together with other people, there's a high value in that. And so I think we are contributing to the world that people can laugh and can be happy. Of course, if you play some games, you get I mean, you should be really careful which game you select. If you go into League of Legends as a newbie or in Counter-Strike, you get flamed a lot by the other people. So that's not the happy place, maybe. But if you play a nice game like RIME, for example, then
or
you might
Breath of
get
the Wild,
something.
which I hear is having a resurgence.
Yeah, exactly. So it might give you a good mood, which is worth a lot, I think.
Yeah. I want to ask you, now that you've been in the industry for a while, Simon, what do you wish you had known when starting out?
I answered that in perspective to VFX. because at the beginning I was 3D artist. So, but especially for VFX, I would have loved to know how to create textures. Because I noticed that making a little particle system, that's something you can learn quicker. Of course, there's a lot of things like timing and stuff you have to learn, but I struggled a lot with creating textures. First, the question is how to create them. Should I draw them? Should I use photos? Should I simulate them? Should I use substance? Should I make photos or something? How do I do that? How do I create a nice fire texture or an ice texture? Because many effects, of course, live from their textures, of course. Makes sense, right? And even if your particle system has a fantastic timing, it might be that it looks a bit off because your texture is just a white blob or something. So this was something I struggled a lot and still struggle. It gets a bit better now that I know simulation more and better, so I can create stuff better. But yeah, and also work iterative, which means don't spend 3 days on an effect, not showing it to anyone, and then at the end either realize it doesn't look really good, or it doesn't fit to the game, or it doesn't fit to the gameplay because, let's say, it's too big and it looks like it would put away a whole house, but actually from a gameplay perspective, it's just a really small damage effect or something. So these are two things which I learned.
Perfection is the enemy of success. So been in that boat before.
Yeah, I mean, I it's okay to spend a lot of time with an effect, but I think it's important to first do a rough version and then share it with the team. Of course, the team has to understand that the first effect can be ugly or should be ugly, because it's just about like, okay, we see how it roughly works, and also the implementation works like from a logic standpoint of view. And then, of course, you can iterate more and more, and then you can make it really beautiful. But it's important to show it to to the team during that process. And I did not do that all the time, and I wasted quite some time with that sometimes.
So how do you handle mistakes when you run into challenges? And surely we all have our failures. How do you overcome those, and what's your bounce back strategy?
When I see that I struggle and I need a lot of time and I go out of work and I'm really sad and self-doubt and I'm like, oh, I'm the worst artist, then sometimes I try to spend extra time in my spare time. I remember that I was dealing with this effect for invisible hours where cloth get wet, and then I was standing in my shower in the hotel and was sprinkling water on my t-shirt to just see how the color changes and how dark it gets and stuff like that. I was in the shower and watching at these drops running down the glass, because we did an effect something like that as well, and I was just thinking all the time, and half an hour later I was still in the shower. So or sometimes I try to find resources in the internet and prepare, like when you were in school and you would learn for the next lesson.
You know, they shower is probably, in like driving cars too, showers are really great for being able to have clarity and just think freely. It's like one of the few places that you can go where you don't have your cell phone on you, where you're distracted with, notifications and vibrations.
Yeah, as soon as you have a waterproof phone and waterproof headphones for listening to podcasts, it's over with creativity. Yeah, I agree. And so this is one thing, but this is not really a solution to handle errors. It's more like a prevention, right? That you try to learn more. And I think I never run into a huge mistake like, oh, the whole month of work is done, right? But I learned that I have to iterate. Just as an example for this wetness shader, the first thing I would do, I would go to Google, I would read these documents where there's an amazing article about how exactly water recolorizes surfaces on a scientific level with roughness, but everything is explained. 3 days later, I didn't have started on the effect. I was just doing research. And the only thing what you need to do in this effect is just make the color a bit darker. That's all, right? A super, super quick effect. But I was spending too much time researching that because I wanted to do it right. Mm-hmm. And I think you can, of course, do that, but like I said, do at least a first iteration, a first very rough iteration. Maybe it's already enough, So I try to avoid mistakes by making a rough version very quickly and then continuing if it's necessary, if the producing thinks it's worth it. Because you, as an VFX artist, want to make everything really beautiful, but maybe production says, hey, it's okay like that. It's just a little smoke puff. It's not the most impressive effect, but it doesn't have to be because it's just a little footstep smoke puff. So it's okay.
That's great. That's great. Are there any role models, VFX or not, that have inspired and influenced you?
Yeah. I think you had on the show, you had both on the show, I think. Julian Love with his talk about the VFX of Diablo is amazing. It's just stunning. As well as on the artistic side, also on the how simple these shaders are and how much they get out of it. Because sometimes I think I lose myself in this thought. It's like when you are, oh, I would like to run, but before I go running, I have to buy these cool shoes. Right? And sometimes we maybe think, oh, I want to do VFX, but before I have to get Houdini or something, or this other amazing, and until that, I cannot start, right? And he just shows, hey, with simple tech, but with a good understanding of art, you can do amazing things. And this was just mind-blowing. And the other really cool guy I really admire is Nikola Damjanov. I hope he worked on spells.
Yeah, Nordius.
Yeah. And his talks, just amazing. And when you follow him on LinkedIn, he's like, oh yeah, I did this in my lunch break. Look at this. And I'm like, okay, for me it would take 1 hour, one week of studying to get to this result. And he's like, I'm just doing this. And he seems to be a really, really nice guy. So and shares the knowledge. Really cool. And the biggest influence for me was two things. When I started my blog, I posted it in a thread on Polycount Forum. And I had the luck that the Polycount Forum put it on their start page. And I think this was a big driver. And because of this positive feedback and all these users coming on my blog, I continued. I think without that, I wouldn't have continued. And then most likely we wouldn't sit here and talk to each other. And the other thing is a lie. Because my first blog post is about teleglitch. It was about teleglitch, and there was an effect in there. I thought they did their it's a top-down game, and I don't know if you remember Nox, but when you are in a room, you can really see only what your character in the room sees, and everything else is black. So they have really a calculation for sight lines. And I thought they have been done that by just extruding the walls upward in the sky and colorizing them black. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can check out the article on my blog. Okay. And I found this was so amazing. And at this point, this was the last tip on that. No, it was the last drop on the barrel. Like, is it a saying in English that the last drop before the barrel overflows? Which means I had the thought about writing on a blog before, but when I saw this, I was like, I have to write everything down now. It's so amazing. Turns out it was not like I assumed. And I am just happy that I didn't know this. But maybe if I would have known how they really did this effect, I would never have started my blog. So it was really good that I just was wrong about this and was just amazed how they did it, which was a lie. But it did something good for me at least. So being naive and not knowing everything can have big advantages. Yeah. So that was the biggest influence for me. Yeah.
Simon, are you ready for the lightning round questions? Quick and easy, just like visual effects.
Of course.
What is a perfect one-day getaway in Montpellier and the surrounding area?
Montpellier. It's there's a lot of cool nature around here, and there's an area is called Mores, and it's amazing for hiking. It's super cool. There's nice structures, buildings, a really cute little village. Really, go there if you can.
What video game or app are you using on your phone that is the most fun?
TikTok, definitely. It's so amazing. I really recommend it, especially now when we all sit at home. It gives you back a little belief in humanity. If you look news, maybe you are like, hey, what are we doing? And TikTok is so diverse. It's so funny. It's so amazing what people are doing there. It's just pure fun and entertainment and learning. I learned cooking with it. It's amazing. Amazing recipes in 1 minute because the videos are not longer than 1 minute. So it's great.
I've learned how to do a couple dance moves
Ooh.
using TikTok. So
Cool.
what is your favorite book or podcast you've listened to recently?
I have some in German, but I think your listeners are more interested in English stuff. So I really like to listen to Coffee with Butterscotch, a game dev comedy podcast. These guys are really cool. They do amazing games and they talk about really interesting things. Not only game dev, also their life, but in game dev also about stuff like how to do a good production, how to automate things. It's really interesting, really entertaining to listen to. I highly recommend checking them out.
What is your favorite thing to cook or eat?
I really like shakshuka. Do you know it? It's
No.
Arabian. It's like tomato stuff and
Sounds spicy.
Yeah, it's a little bit spicy, but then like tomato based, and then you put an egg in there, and then it's just amazing. Yeah, you can.
Is it
put
shaped like a sphere or like a square? Like what does it look like?
It's more like a thick soup.
Oh, it's a soup. Okay, gotcha. I'm imagining like a pizza or like a loaf of bread or something. I wasn't really sure.
Oh no, I can send you a little link in the chat here. It's just an amazing tomato-based egg, amazing thing to eat, especially when it's cold outside.
Favorite video game visual effect you are jealous of that is not your own?
Not one single effect, but and also not really jealous. It's more that I really admire the effects from Cross M. I don't know if you know him. I can send you the link to the ArtStation. These effects are mind-blowing to me because they have great timing, great color. Everything looks highly polished. I don't even know how this guy is doing it, but I look at it and I'm like, can you please teach me?
Best advice for a first-time visual effects artist or people looking to get into the industry?
Join a community. We all like to share knowledge. So come into a Discord or a forum or whatever. For example, the Real-Time VFX forum. And there are competitions. So join them. It's really good to have a deadline to finish stuff. So and it's really fun. You can exchange with other people who are also doing the competition. But if you go into a community, please communicate well, which means Google before you ask. And if you don't know what to Google, then say that. Hey, sorry, I'm so new. I don't even know the keywords. So can you please give me a kickstart? You can explain that. And I remember people coming to me with a message like, hi. And then I had to say, yeah, hello. And he said, can you do VFX? And I said, but this is not a good conversation. I mean, say at least how you are, like what's your name and what do you want? And it's so please communicate. And if you have questions, use images. So it doesn't help if you say, how to do a fireball, or I have a problem with my fireball. Show us your settings and how it looks and everything. Send us screenshots so that we can see well. And then everyone will really be happy to help.
And please, guys, do not go to Simon and say, like, can you get me a job at Wild Sheep Studios? Simon is not the hiring manager. If you maybe want to share your portfolio and get some feedback, maybe Simon will help with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always okay to ask if there's an opportunity, but yeah, at least say your name at the beginning of the message.
What question do you never get asked that you wish you were asked more often?
Yeah, what can we do to improve your workflow? I don't know if you worked in a company or with an engine which is not Unreal or Unity or CryEngine, but with custom tech. Usually the tools are very, very bad, and usually nobody cares. And it's often horrible to work with these workflows, and it's just crazy. And I would really like to be asked, hey, can we do something to improve that? And then actually do it would be amazing. Yeah.
That's a valid point. Like, I'm seeing it more and more often with game companies where if you put your employees before your customers, your employees will serve your customers well. So set your employees up for success and your company will be successful. That's the idea or the mantra behind it. Simon, any final thoughts to plug? Anything you want to share or promote or throw?
No, not really. I would just say be nice to each other, help each other, and feel free to contact me. If you want, just contact me on ArtStation or Twitter or whatever you want. If you have questions or something, I really like to help. I really love to communicate with people, so don't hesitate. And most important, tell others about this podcast, because I think you do an amazing job. I really like listening to your podcast. I'm really happy that you do it, because nobody else does. So it's really, really cool to hear all these stories. And so if you listeners listen right now, grab your best friend and tell him or her, hey, here, I have a podcast. Listen to it.
The world of real-time visual effects is definitely something that's growing, and more people want to know about it. So it's been awesome having you here, man.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Man, what a great guy. Simon really knows how to scratch my ego. No, but for real, all of you guys are so supportive of this podcast, and I'm so glad you're getting value out of it. Here are the takeaways from today's episode. Number 1, use the resources at hand. Simon needed financial assistance while he pursued his art, and he went to his family, and his girlfriend helped him out. Don't be afraid to ask your family for help. Number 2, build a personal project. If you want to stand out and bring new opportunities to the board, start a blog with your own game art tricks. Do a YouTube channel. There are ways for you to stand out. Number 3, document your work. By adding reference to your workflow, you're going to be saving yourself in time and money. And there's going to be a huge amount of resources for you to fall back on whenever you forget something. More importantly, other people want to see that workflow so that they can improve on their own work. So you're knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone. Guys, another great episode here. I just want to let you know again that there is a new website, rtvfxpodcast.com, and you can get onto that domain. We have resources to different software packages you can use, and every interview has their own profile set up for the guest with their contact information and some of the media that they're working on. So definitely bookmark that page and follow along the RTVFX podcast journey. Until next time, I love you so much. Rock on.